Hello, wider listeners. It is once again that time of the week. What time of the week is it? Well, it's that very special time of the week where we dig underneath the headlines. We take a deeper look at what's really going on and pierce through all of that mainstream media capitalist propaganda. We present to you a deft leftist analysis on issues at the international, national, statewide, and very local level. And generally, we call out the establishment on its BS. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, your only source for that revolutionary news that really has got that teeth, that punch, etc. Now, as always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM, WIDR Kalamazoo, or Western Michigan University. No matter how dope or insightful they may, in fact, turn out to be. Well, we got a lot of very important stories to talk about on the show today. I want to start with, let's go ahead and start with some good news, and this is also like some very important information. But later on in the program, just kind of giving y'all an FYI, some of the stuff we're going to be talking about. Got a very important update about the local anti-discrimination housing ordinance that is just kind of right now in the process of going through. We've got some primary stuff to talk about. There's been two debates since the last episode of our program. Me and Lawrence are going to be deep diving into that a little bit later on in the show. Might talk a little bit about Malcolm X's birthday. A progressive media outlet is under some scrutiny for not letting their employees unionize, which honestly does not sound at all progressive to me. But all that and more will be on the show as we deep dive into it. But again, like I said, let's start with a little bit of good news. And, I don't know if I necessarily want to frame this as a, yay, the for-private company did good, or, that sort of like woke capitalist thing. It's like, did you know that the CEO of Little Caesars paid for Rosa Parks' rent and food for about 2 decades there. Well, good for him, but he's also a billionaire, and there's also a lot of poverty in Detroit. So yay, token acts of kindness from the rich people who at the very least would let it pay their fair share of taxes or whatnot. But I think this is also just some very important logistical information for my listeners, too, because I know this is a method of travel that a lot of us use, a lot of us proles, as working class folks. But this is something that dropped on the 21st. I'm reading specifically from the PBS website. And it's, again, some good news and some important information. Headlining the article, this is shared from Gene Johnson from the Associated Press. Greyhound to stop allowing immigration checks without a warrant. And I'm just going to go ahead and read from the article here. Greyhound, the nation's largest bus company, said Friday it will stop allowing Border Patrol agents without a warrant to board its buses to conduct routine immigration checks. The company's announcement came 1 week after the Associated Press reported on a leaked Border Patrol memo confirming that agents can't board private buses without the consent of the bus company. Greyhound had previously insisted that even though it didn't like the immigration checks, it had no choice under the federal law but to allow them. I'm just thinking of the Maury Povich meme. It's like, the results of our test determined that was a lie. But yeah, so as it turns out, it is up to the company. Anyway, I'm going to read a little bit from the article, and then I'll have a little bit of my own commentary. In an emailed statement, the company said it would notify the Department of Homeland Security that it does not consent to unwarranted searches on its buses or in areas of terminals that are not open to the general public. It said it would provide its drivers and bus station employees updated training regarding the new policy, and that it would place stickers on all its buses clearly stating that it does not consent to the searches. Greyhound has faced pressure from the American Civil Liberties Union, immigrant rights activists, and Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson to stop allowing sweeps on buses within 100 miles of an international border or coastline, which, if you know anything about ICE or Border Patrol, essentially their jurisdiction is 100 miles away from any United States border. Interesting fact about Michigan, that means our entire state is encompassed by that because that includes the borders around Lake Michigan and Canada and whatnot. Yeah, a lot of people, when they think of ICE or Immigration and Customs Enforcement or Border Patrol, they think of, the U.S.-Mexico border, but Michigan is a ICE patrol, Border Patrol hot zone. A lot of your undocumented friends might already know that. So, anyway, they say the practice is intimidating and discriminatory and has been more common under President Donald Trump. Border Patrol arrests videotaped by other passengers have sparked criticism, and Greyhound faces a lawsuit in California alleging that it violated consumer protection laws by facilitating raids. Some other bus companies, including Jefferson Lines, which operates in 14 states, and MTR Western, which operates in the Pacific Northwest, have made clear that they do not consent to agents boarding buses either. The memo obtained by the AP was dated January 28th, addressed to all Chief Patrol agents and signed by then Border Patrol Chief Carla Provost just before she retired. It confirms the legal position that Greyhound's critics have taken that the Constitution's Fourth Amendment prevents agents from boarding buses and questioning passengers without a warrant or the consent of the company. When transportation checks occur on a bus at non-checkpoint locations, the agent must demonstrate that he or she gained access to the bus with the consent of the company's owner or one of the company's employees, the memo states. An agent's actions while on the bus would not cause a reasonable person to believe that he or she is unable to terminate the encounter with the agent. So, again, props to Greyhound for, basically listening to public pressure and creating a more humane policy when it comes to these sorts of raids. I can't say enough. When you're on a Greyhound bus, you just want to get from point A to point B. You don't want to have to deal with harassment from the Border Patrol. Or even if you're not undocumented or, you see yourself as somehow apart from this issue, nobody likes their bus to get held up for any amount of time. I mean, it's a Greyhound bus. There's not very good legroom. But at the very least, we now have some protections for our brothers and sisters and non-binary folks who got to ride them Greyhound, ride the dirty dog, who may not be documented citizens. Documented so-called citizens. I don't know. I go into my whole leftist critique about open borders and nation states. But anyway, this is good news for everyone. Again, hopefully they'll work on the whole legroom thing next. But one can dream, one step at a time. By the way, one of my favorite anecdotes. This isn't in the article, but it's been making the rounds on Facebook and Twitter. And really goes to kind of the spirit of working class solidarity. Mentioned a Greyhound bus driver who, basically a Border Patrol agent, came up to them at a stop, asked them if he could search the bus, and the bus driver allegedly told Border Patrol / ICE that they could gargle his BALLS. It's good stuff. Working class has lots of sass. That's not all where that came from. There's more where that came from. Yeah. Oh man, I'm gonna confuse the airwaves with Malifaux. That's bad. You gotta check your chickens before the ship sinks. No. All right. So with that, good news again for folks out there who are perhaps undocumented or fearful of ICE or Border Patrol, and you got to ride that bus. Well, another one can in fact ride the bus. without ostensibly having to fear too much about harassment from ICE or customs enforcement. So let's go to a local story. I wanted to follow up on this from last week, and this was actually the first public meeting about this. So if you tuned in last week, you might have heard me talk a little bit about the anti-discrimination ordinance that particularly Vice Mayor Patrice Griffin is pushing through, that would try to curtail landlord discrimination against potential renters. And I'm going to dive a little bit into the article, and then, I was at the meeting, so I'll talk a little bit about some of the specifics, things I saw on the ground there. So this is from an MLive article. It's written by Brad Devereaux, published on February 24th. Kalamazoo City Commission held a special meeting Monday, February 24th to talk about the proposed ordinance intended to address structural racism and inequality in housing. The proposal would update Chapter 18 of the Kalamazoo Code of Ordinances, which addresses community relations and discrimination, to eliminate blanket housing rejections for any demographic. Among the changes proposed would be new protections for people using housing vouchers or county ID cards, as well as those who have been previously incarcerated, according to the city. Additionally, rental housing application fees would be regulated, and a civil rights board would be established to review contested cases of discrimination that would come under the purview of the ordinance. Just a little bit more specificity on their proposed cap on the rental housing application fees, and also a guarantee of refund if the applicant does not actually get accepted. It's important to note, and actually, if you go back to watch the stream of the video, I think Patrice Griffin speaks pretty eloquently about this, that if you are a low-income family or just low-income in general, then it is very difficult to shoulder all of these application fees, particularly when you are in a precarious housing situation, and you might be needing to apply to 5-6 different options each week. That piles up, and particularly for low-income folks, it can just become incredibly burdensome to try to find a house, particularly if you are in some sort of housing emergency or crisis at that moment. Going on, says, about 20 citizens spoke at the meeting, with some for and some against the proposed changes. The meeting, originally set in the community room, was moved to the larger commission chambers because of the number of people attending. I will say that was a big and delightful surprise for myself. I did expect it to just, I didn't even expect necessarily to fill up the other room, but the entire chamber was filled. It was standing room only. I'd say a big kudos to a lot of the organizations involved. Isaac, TRHT, Truth and Racial Healing, and the Fair Housing Organization were all very deeply involved in getting this ordinance put together. Particularly Isaac, from what I heard, did some groundwork. They went out and did a lot of surveys and direct conversations with Kalamazoo residents about discriminatory housing in general. So there's been a lot of work that's gone into this, and that kind of ties into some what I'm kind of going to respond to in just a second here. Several landlords spoke against parts of the ordinance and asked to give more input on the potential changes. I cannot allow somebody to make financial decisions for me unless, of course, you want to sign my mortgage. Then I'm okay, but I don't think that's going to happen, Mike Fleckenstein said, and asked city commissioners to spend more time working on the issue. Wendy Denning of Troff and Denning said she has been a landlord for over 35 years. This draft, as adopted, would be the ruin of nearly every provider of low to moderate income property in Kalamazoo, Denning said. No landlord that I know was asked to take part in drafting this ordinance, even though it directly affects us and how we do business. Oh, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Yeah, okay. You're going to kind of... I have a particular side on this. So... Here's what I thought was pretty interesting. The ordinance itself is not unprecedented, as city attorney Clyde Robinson even noted. A lot of this was based on comparable models in other cities. Ann Arbor, Detroit, larger cities like Chicago and New York have had these kind of anti-discrimination ordinances on their books for decades. So it isn't something really beyond the pale, but you certainly wouldn't know that listening to some of the landlords that came to speak at the city commission meeting that night. Now, I will give credit where credit is due. There were a couple of very reasonable comments from some of the landlords and people who worked for property management companies, more around specificity and making sure that, there's we want to do our due diligence to make sure that we're abiding by this new ordinance. I will say, though, there were a lot of them were whiny, a lot of landlord tears. I could have brought a cup to collect them. It would have made a delicious beverage. I thought that comment I just read from Denning was particularly melodramatic. Oh, it'll be the ruin of all the small landlords. Oh, no. So what really falls onto the landlord's laps? There is a little bit of extra work that'll have to be done, just because the ordinance more or less asks landlords to be contextual and to not just blanket discriminate against anyone just because they have a criminal record or just because of their income level, et cetera, et cetera. I heard one of the landlords, I believe it was. Unfortunately, I left my notes at home, but I do know one of the landlords kind of spoke to this and said that, right now we kind of view everyone as the same, and we don't want to have to go into the business of making these value judgments, etc. I don't know. It was you find that the sense that I got, it was even less about the actual ordinance itself than kind of just this blanket irritation from the landlord property owning class that the city is gonna try to make them abide by some guidelines or standards. And another thing that was really irritating about it too is many of them diverted from the actual subject. Many of the complaints, and I'm about to let Lawrence in here, had nothing to do with the anti-discrimination ordinance itself. Give me just a sec. I'm going to let Lawrence in. We're going to kind of continue on the topic. Hello, everyone. We are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. Lawrence is joining me now. Say hello to the folks.
What up, folks?
Yeah. All right. So I want to get back to this story about because I think it's important to kind of give you all the context of this is the first time this anti-discrimination ordinance really hit the public. Just a summation. It was a huge turnout. Mostly people who were supportive of the ordinance, people who had worked on it. There were a few landlords who came to speak. And as I was about to say, something that I thought that they did that was I found particularly irritating, or kind of in bad faith, is a lot of them. So I just read that very melodramatic quote about how this very mild, and again, a type of ordinance that's already active in places like Ann Arbor, Chicago, Detroit, and many, many, many other cities in the United States. To say it's going to somehow ruin, the business model for landlords in the city of Kalamazoo is very ridiculous and hyperbolic. Wendy Denning could just go chill down, go chill out, go sit down on your porch, and with a mojito and some chili so you can chill.
I mean, dog, it's about our them bottom line profits. You know what I'm saying? If something's going to make me as a landlord spend more money, and I'm going to take in less money, and as a result of it, then I'm not gonna be for it. I'm not gonna be for it because you taking away my money. You're standing in the way of me maximizing profit. Mm-hmm. And that's all that is.
I mean, the most punitive thing in there is upping. It increases the fine for violating, this ordinance from $500 to $2,000, which again, for the big property management companies is, it's enough at the local level to hurt, but not cripple. And with the smaller landlords, that it's funny too, because Trop and Denning, they own many properties. They're not part of the working class per se, but to kind of hide behind the smaller landlords that this could hurt. Well, but the bottom line, with the Civil Rights Board, that's going to be kind of an enforcement of it. They're going to choose 7 people. They haven't really been specific about what that process is going to look like, which again, I think that's a whole discussion on itself. But the idea that the small landlords that would be impacted by this would be the racist ones, the ones who shouldn't be landlords in the first place. So, if they violate it, then no. If they go bankrupt, it's like, what is it? DJ Khaled said, you played yourself. I'm sorry.
All right, congratulations.
Yeah. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah.
Right.
Another thing that was irritating that I kept alluding to is that a couple landlords, and even some of the citizens who came up to speak, kind of obfuscated and pivoted. Instead of talking about discriminatory housing, they talked about bad tenants, tenants who wrecked up the place, or tenants who were bad neighbors. It kind of boiled down to this sort of NIMBYism, and I hear this a lot whenever I'm around people of a certain income brackets, and I start up with my tenants' rights or critiques of landlords. Inevitably, somebody will stop and say, well, what about bad tenants? What about bad tenants? What about tenants who mess up the house or, don't pay stuff? And what's telling them about that to me is that had nothing to do with the topic at hand. This is about making sure that there's no discrimination on the front end when you're accepting these housing applications. There's a little bit of, I think there's a little bit of kind of liberal racism going on there. It's like
that's not liberal racism.
It's that's dog whistling.
That's the same type of excuse that they use to justify redlining. It's not like if you ever go back and listen to the reason why some realtors and landlords didn't want to give homes to black folks. A lot of times, that's the same type of rhetoric that they would use. It's not. It's akin to the property value will go down. It's akin to they don't fit the culture of this neighborhood. It's akin to all of that. Unrelated, unquantifiable rhetoric that will keep people that you don't like from the neighborhood, and it goes against the core principles of what we say that we talk about in this city. Like, if you have the money, and also If you have the money, you should be able to get to be able to live where you want to live. But at the same time, we also have a housing issue and homeless people here. Mm-hmm. So you have people who are in the midst of transition. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to discriminate against those who are in need. Like that's the argument that you're making.
Yeah.
The argument that you're making. Yeah, that's the argument.
Well, I think the argument like Fleckenstein was making. I think he's the guy from Trident. But he was all about. It's like, well, it's my money, it's my property, so you shouldn't come in and tell me what to do with them. Blah. It's like, oh man, and
we're just asking you, just like they asked the racist restaurant owners back in the South, that black folks and other people have money too. You should let them eat in your restaurant, or in this case, you should let them live. In your establishment if they have the money to do so and if they're good tenants. Now, if you can give some other reason, like what other reason are you giving outside of they may be bad tenants? Do you know that they're bad tenants? Do you know what they have gone through to even get to the point where they can put this application in? Do you know them on a personal level? No. You want to wield your power to discriminate against those who may not have power in the first place.
It just sounded like from the landlords who are in the room, they don't like the idea of one, scrutiny, and two, there is a certain amount of extra work that they will need to do on their end to kind of keep up with the ordinance. And
nobody likes extra work.
Nobody likes extra work.
Here's the thing. I can sympathize with you. Nobody likes extra work. Here's the thing. You have the power in this situation. You're gonna have to do extra work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like that's point blank period. That's just how it works. I don't know how to tell you.
Oh yeah, and I think one of the things that really stuck with me from that meeting too. I've got a couple things before we move on to the next topic, but one. The landlords talking and the property management companies came to speak. Talking about like how enraged or offended they were that they weren't consulted, and as I said at the top of this story, it's been like an 18-month process with Isaac and TRHT and fair housing, and not to mention housing, affordable housing, access to housing. Like everybody who was running in the last election, that was the number one issue in the city. Everybody was talking about it. It was part of I think it was definitely part of Patrice's platform, and I know Chris spoke out to it too. But there was an expectation with this new administration coming in. You got to do something about housing. Right. So I don't know where all the landlords were. I know when I went to speak up on the dais, I was like, y'all should maybe have some conversations with your tenants. The fact that you didn't know anything like this was coming, versus, there was a room full of community organizers and elected officials who had been hearing about this nonstop for the last 2 years. That spoke a lot to me about how much these property owners actually, keep their finger on the pulse of the community. The other big thing, and so Ben Stanley spoke at the end. He was one of the last people to comment, and not gonna lie, so he was kind of goofy when he ran for city commission, but he said some really profound stuff at the end of that meeting. I really want to give him props for that. And what he was really talking about, and something that we should also be cognizant of as well, is this is a good start, but this doesn't really go far enough when we're talking about the problems with housing in Kalamazoo. And the example he brought up was, he had two neighbors who both had housing vouchers, and one, it was their first time out living on their own. Two, they didn't there's just all these little details that you don't know about, so you described a story about a neighbor who used a housing voucher, didn't know how expensive utility bills would be in the winter up on the north side. And he said, at the start of last season, both the houses were occupied, but because of X, Y, and Z, he's sandwiched between two houses that are abandoned and boarded up. And the long story short is, we also need to provide community supports for folks who are moving into these properties because, again, that's just one example. Heating bills can be atrociously expensive in the winter, disproportionately affects low-income people. And, I think there's a lot of other stuff in that, too. We're talking about, living conditions. There's housing is a very broad issue. And I've got some news for the landlords. If you think this is it, no, this is just the beginning. So your best protection, act in good faith, be good to your tenants, and follow the law. Yes. And not to mention, too, there's that whole concept of, the free market capitalism. Well, there are a lot of people, particularly people me and Lawrence's age, who are looking at, housing for all models and who are really emphasizing housing should be a human right and shouldn't be for profit. So you want to keep yourselves in business. It's time to maybe level up what you're doing.
Doc, I'm not gonna lie. I'm definitely agree with Martin Luther King on this. About when it comes to universal housing, I'm definitely on that wavelength. I think that you cannot. Like when I look at the models that happen in Utah and in St. Louis, not in St. Louis, Seattle. Like when you look at their models of how they got their homeless population down, how they cut that percentage down, and when you look at their models when it comes to housing, I think it's really good. I don't think it goes far enough, but I think those are really good models and examples. But yeah, I don't even have to go back. You can go further back than Martin Luther King. You can go to FDR in the second Bill of Rights. His second Bill of Rights, one of those things that was in his second Bill of Rights was housing. You can't be a stable American if you don't know where you're going to be sleeping at night. It's the most it's one of the most logical things that I can think of.
That reminds me, something that also came up was property values. They tied it into the whole thing about bad tenants, and I don't know, there's all this coded language around. It's if we're forced to take in people with certain histories and backgrounds, property value might decrease. And it's I'm listening to this, and it's funny because Matt Smith was in the building, and it's somebody should just give this guy the rest of the citizens' time to do his redlining lecture, because these landlords need a lesson or something, man.
My dog, man. It's amazing how, we're in 2020 and we are still fighting some of the old battles from some of, I did a workshop last week. Shout out to Erase. Erase did a anti-racism workshop. I encourage everybody to go to it because it was amazing. It was and we were talking about different legislation, different laws that passed, and how different resistance groups was fighting against it. This is one of those things that talked about. I talk about on this show all the time. Black home ownership is the lowest it's been in 50 years. Why has that been? It's because of things because of the redistribution of wealth when it came to the Bush tax cuts, the Trump's tax cuts. It comes from because of things like the financial crisis and the Great Recession, and banks not giving out loans to black folks. If they did, they give them out at a higher interest. The loans and things that they're giving them and the mortgages that they're giving them are crappy mortgages. We read it in their emails that they were giving mud packages to mud people. That's how they felt.
Yeah, that's right.
And it goes all the way back down to it goes all the way back to not just on a national level, but on a local level. When you're more focused on your profit and your bottom line than you are about the lives of the people that you could be helping, that's an issue. But at the same time, I can't get mad if you're starving. If you're starving trying to make a living, I can't get mad at you for that. But at the same time, if you are a homeowner or a landowner like these people are, you're not starving. You're not starving in the same way as the people who needs to get into this house to be stable.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And even some of the smaller landlords, I mean, you had enough capital to buy up a house and flip it to begin with. So, I don't think you're on the precipice of poverty, but
I mean, I'm not saying that you might not be hurting. I'm not saying that you might not be in the red. I am saying is that the person who needs to get in this house because they may be living at the shelter right now, they might be living at one of the shelters, they hurting worse.
Yeah.
So please keep that in mind.
All right, so I think with that, unless you got anything else on that topic, Lawrence, take a little bit of a break, and then we'll transition to something else. Y'all are listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution.
You're listening to 89.1 FM WIDR Kalamazoo.
Voting is important. From deciding Kalamazoo's best drunk food to picking the fan favorite for Wider's Battle of the Bands, voting allows people to voice their opinions and change their world. To vote for offices such as mayors, senators, and the president takes a little more than a link to a Google Forms survey. Before you vote, you have to register. This can be done in person, by mail, and, in many states, online. For more information, you can point your favorite web browser to vote.gov.
The big controversy around Bernie Sanders.
All right, y'all, we are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So I think we're going to scope out now, look at the national scene. And again, a lot of stuff has been going on with the primaries and all of those politics. In this last week, there were 2 debates. There's our feed today is full of stories about gaffes and remarks and some BS from the mainstream media.
That and President Joe and Joe Biden forgot that he's running for president, and he said he's running for Senate. Yeah. That and him lying about being arrested with Nelson Mandela, those 2 things I personally want to talk about.
So let's start with a couple of highlights from last Wednesday's debate. And I actually wanted to start with something I left out. We basically spent an entire hour last week calling out Bloomberg's BS.
Okay. So if we're gonna do that, I need you to cue up this video because it's one of those things. Because we talk about this all the time. Bloomberg accidentally said the quiet part out loud.
Okay, and this is the second I heard about this.
Yeah, he said the quiet part out loud.
But I just wanted to say real quick, there was an article from Bloomberg about Bloomberg where he suggested that millennials like socialism because they like social media, basically implying that millennials are only into this kind of politics because they're naive or something. And some, everything else that's awful about Bloomberg is awful, but there's just something about that pissed me off in particular because I'm like, no, Mike. The reason we don't like you is not because we're naive. It's because we're well read. It's because we have gone back and we've read we've read our books about listen liberal. We've seen we've read our theory. We've read our history. From Karl Marx to the Black Panthers, the history of social movements, to the corporate capture of our political system. We know all this stuff. In our interest in the kind of politics espoused by Bernie Sanders or socialism more generally is virtue of the fact that we know our, not because we don't.
Yeah. So okay. So the debate happened. So you want to pull up that video and go to that time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the debate happened. Well, so first there was the town halls, and I want to talk about the town halls because the biggest controversy that went from the town hall on Tuesday, was one of the biggest controversy was about Bernie and his comments about Castro, which we will get into. But we talk about money in politics. We talk about people buying politicians. Bloomberg's a billionaire that has bought his way onto the debate stage. I want everybody to listen to this Freudian slip that he does, where he says the quiet part out loud. He says the quiet part out loud. I need everybody to listen to this. Listen to this. Listen to him say this. Cut the music off. I need everybody to hear all of this.
Of the new Democrats that came in and put Nancy Pelosi in charge and gave the Congress the ability to control this president, I got them. Number 2, when you
play it one more time. Play it one more time.
Okay.
Play it one more time for the people in the back. Because I need everyone to hear what he said. He said the quiet part out loud. Play it in HD.
Put Nancy Pelosi in charge and gave the Congress the ability to control this president. I got them.
I got them. That's that's the key phrasing, right?
So when we talk about money in politics, when we talk about people being beholden to their donors, people when we said that he's a billionaire, him having $66 million is his own financial interest. He literally said it.
Yes.
First of all, at the last debate, they all went on stage and said they don't believe in democracy.
Yeah, that's the big thing I was going to bring up from last time. Yeah.
First, they said they didn't believe in democracy, that the person with the most votes and the most delegates should win the primary.
So
first
can we set up the context? Just I know some people might not be familiar with what the convention process looks like. And so at the end of the debate last Wednesday, a week ago from today. The last question was, should the person who wins the plurality of votes / delegates be the Democratic nominee? And everybody except Bernie said, no, we should different kinds of permutations. We should just follow the process, blah, 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 blah.
We should let the overwhelming consensus outside of Bernie was let the caucus process play out.
Yeah.
Which means that the super delegates that happen on the second ballot.
So I want to back up real quick. So the magic number for any winning candidate is 1,991, I believe. So Bernie essentially needs 50% plus one to lock it in at the convention. If he fails to get 50%, then it can be a contested / brokered convention, and the second round, as Lawrence is about to explain, goes to the superdelegates.
So remember, folks, 65% of the superdelegates are white men. Mm-hmm. Remember, folks, that one superdelegate is the equivalent of 10,000 votes, of 10,000 American votes. So these are 500 superdelegates that can literally swing the election in the way that they see fit. Not because they're not beholden to their delegates. They're not beholden to the people that they're representing. They're beholden to themselves. So we could have a situation where someone who has less votes and less delegates being the nominee for the party which is superseding the will of the American people. That is literally what we were talking about last week. Mm-hmm. How did we get to a system like that? Because we had the millionaires and billionaires and corporations giving money to politicians so that we can influence them in the way that they want. Bloomberg literally was saying that when he made that Floridian slip. That is the same. This is the thing that pisses me off, and this is the reason why a lot of mainstream media probably didn't cover it, and this is the main reason why I wanted to talk about it. Who also said that that when they gave money to politicians, they were there for them. They did what they said.
Oh,
who also said that they bought politicians? What isn't it
was a billionaire from New York.
Right.
Which one?
Right. That's my point. We've already saw that depending on who it is, depending on the billionaire, they can just fund themselves and be and just we'll be living in an auction. Who feels like spending the most money to win the presidency?
Yeah. The only difference between like ostensibly this and like him trying to like buy up these Congress people, it's like this time he's actually in the action. It's like he's LARPing or something. It's like, it's like, want to be a fun hobby, I'm going to go run for president instead of just paying someone else to do it. Oh Lord.
Dog. So like, and that's the thing. If they was to pick somebody like Bloomberg, here's the thing. I know there was a lot of people that were saying, like, let's say that the convention happens.
Let's say, are we in this hypothetical situation? Bernie is short of the plurality.
In this hypothetical situation, he has the majority, but he doesn't have a plural. He has a majority, but he's not at 51. He's like 45 or something.
Yeah,
he's at 45, whatever. But they choose a Biden or an Elizabeth Warren, even if they choose a Bloomberg. Right? Mm-hmm. That's a consensus candidate. I can't think of a better way of how 45 will stay in office. I honestly can't think of a better way of how we will destroy the Democratic Party. How the Democratic Party will be destroyed. Because there's no caveat. I will not vote for whoever the Democratic person is if they steal this with superdelegates. I will not vote for the Democratic Party. I will vote third party.
And just think of how many people were frustrated last time and all of this, like, we have the receipts of how rigged the process was in 2016, but there's just something so much more unashamed and unabashed when you have a candidate who wins the majority of the votes and you rip it away from them anyway. I don't think none of these candidates or the Democratic establishment, Tom Perez, have really thought through the consequences of trying to push something, or maybe they have. I mean, a lot of them would rather have Trump in office than Bernie Sanders. I mean, Chris Matthews said that.
I mean, it wasn't just Chris Matthews.
He said the quiet part out loud.
No, it was also the Goldman Sachs dude, dog. Chris Matthews said maybe the moderates want to wait. They want to wait 4 years until they can put somebody in that they want. That's also saying the quiet part out loud. Mm-hmm. So what is that saying? You would rather lose to Donald Trump because you want to protect your tax cuts instead of having someone who wants to fight for the American people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing that I want to talk about. I personally also wanted to talk about this Russia smear.
Oh yeah,
this Russia smear. So
there's a very smart centrist somewhere. It's like, these two articles came out on the same day. One about how Russia is helping Bernie. One about how Russia is helping Trump. And I'm sure there's just some quote unquote very smart centrist who's like, well, Russia's playing both sides so that Putin always comes out on top.
Doc, okay, so
Bloomberg tried to extrapolate from that. It's like, well, Putin's helping Bernie because he knows Bernie will lose to Trump.
And then when Bernie's like, yo,
that's some four-dimensional chess right there.
And Bernie's like, yo, in the last 50 polls, I win 47 out of the 50 times in head-to-head matchups against Trump, including the last poll where Bernie beats Trump by 3. Bloomberg loses to Trump by 3.
Keep in mind, throughout the 2016 primary, Bernie was always polling better against Trump than Hillary. And then in this primary,
usually by double digits.
Yes. In this primary, he has almost always had the lead, except a couple of points. It's bounced between him and Biden. But nowhere has anybody like, you know what? Bloomberg. Do better against Trump.
Okay, so I wanted to read this. I wanted to read this because I don't know who did this, but I don't know who did this. I got this image from Kyle Kalinske from the Kyle Kalinske Show. Mm-hmm. We've seen this story before because the article from the Wall Street Journal and CNN Politics was, Sanders told that Russia is trying to help his campaign. Now, back in 2012 and in 2008, you had opinion articles coming. You had opinion articles and other articles that came out that said why Putin wants Obama to win.
Yeah.
Back in May of 1978, this is New York Times. Aides tell Carter, that's Jimmy Carter, is courted by Russia.
I'm starting to sense a pattern here.
Wait. Before Carter, this is the Times, right? Why Russian officials tries to help John F. Kennedy win the presidency. These are all stories that we've heard before. Remember, they said, look, if you believe that Russia had tried to influence the election to help Trump, you know what? There's some evidence of that I actually agree with. Now I'm like, all right, we can have that conversation. Yeah, but if you're trying to say that Russia's trying to help Sanders, but you're forgetting the fact that Putin also wanted Obama to win against Kaine and against Mitt Romney, and you're also telling me that these are the same media organizations that were also saying that Russia was trying to help Jimmy Carter and JFK. I think I think you protest too much. And
please, don't put it past American intelligence agencies to leak kind of false or misleading information to sway national politics. This has been happening for decades. The Gulf of Tonkin incident, again, was proven to be completely false and completely fabricated. That was the justification for the Vietnam War. And going even further back to like the end of the 19th century, the Spanish-American War, you can draw these parallels where the American government, they blamed Spain for what ended up being a false flag attack on one of their like merchant vessels. So I mean, Spain was like the Russia at the time. So like this idea of like, swaying national politics for like a particular economic interest goes back to like the growing like teenage days of our country, really back to the very beginning. So
Dog,
yeah,
so here's the thing, because I know people were upset with Bernie. To add to that, I know people was upset with Bernie because he was he was like kind of like he was going along with the Russia smear. But I wanna put out, because I heard them have a conversation about it. Bernie was like, "Hey, I don't agree with the Bernie Bros either. Hey, the Bernie Bros, all the people that you keep saying are associated with me, those sound like those could be Russian bots."
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh, fantastic.
That's some good quality political jujitsu right there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's the stuff we'll get like Joy Reid on your side.
No. Joy Reid had to come to the realization that she's been a tool, and that's actually a clip that I also want to play as well, but that'll be a little bit later. So this smear of Bernie also came up during the debate, and I want you to play these two clips. So first, it was his town hall answer to him talking about Castro. So let's play that.
And then just a little bit of context. So he defended, the Cuban government's. I think it was particularly the literacy initiative.
He condemned Castro for being an authoritarian. He said, but he also said, "Yo, he's an authoritarian. I don't rock with authoritarians, but they also taught people how to read and write." All right. Like, there's nuance here. Two things can be true at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
And like, I definitely have like some stuff to say about that. I think I'll wait until after these two clips. But
yeah.
Here's the first one. This is Bernie from last night's debate.
This is from the town hall.
Oh, this is from the town hall.
This is from the town. I wanted to play this one because this one actually is a much more thorough answer than the garbage that we saw at town hall, like at the debate. And I want to talk more about the debate later, but let's talk about
I know how it is at the debate. It's like, Mr. Sanders, we got to cut off your point. Pete wants to say a bunch of empty platitudes and yell at you for being divisive.
No, after this conversation, then I'm going to deep dive into the debate. But after this, yeah.
Murderous tyrant. Response.
The response was when Fidel Castro first came to power, which was when? 59? Does that sound right?
59-60.
Okay. You know what he did? He initiated a major literacy program. There was a lot of folks in Cuba at that point who were illiterate. And he formed the literacy brigade. You may read that. He went out and they helped people learn to read and write. You know what? I think teaching people to read and write is a good thing. I have been extremely consistent and critical of all authoritarian regimes all over the world, including Cuba, including Nicaragua, including Saudi Arabia, including China, including Russia. I happen to believe in democracy, not authoritarianism.
To the Democrats who say, you don't say good things about Fidel Castro. He destroyed freedoms in that country. He picked winners and
keep letting him play.
Oh, keep letting him play? Okay. Yeah.
Losers and killed them and put them in prison forever. You don't give them a pat on the back for anything.
You don't give. It's not a question. Truth is truth.
Yeah.
So, context, folks. Yes, you can say somebody did a horrible thing. Like I could give context. I think that Bill Cosby deserved to go to jail because of what he did. But at the same time, I cannot knock the fact that during that what he was doing in public, as in his changing the face of how black folks was looked at in America when it came to his comedy, when it came to his philanthropy, and the way that we looked at black men and black families in America, I can't say that Cosby Show didn't have a great influence on that. Those two things coexist at the same time. Kobe Bryant was one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He is the GOAT in multiple ways. If you want to bring up the fact that he had a rape allegation and that also tarnishes his legacy, cool. If you are only bringing up the fact that there was a rape allegation, but you're not bringing up any other facts about the case, like the DNA evidence that was recovered from the woman did not match Kobe, then you're only doing propaganda because you're not telling the whole entire story.
Let me. I want to kind of similarly. I want to bring up the fact that, like, this is something that comes up a lot, and I think is only going to continue to come up, especially as younger people are getting more educated on this stuff. Is a lot of the things that we've been told about socialist states, growing up, are not necessarily all true. Something that comes to mind, CIA itself. I believe this was in the late 70s, early 80s, kind of just the peak of like the Soviet Union's kind of power. They determined that the average Soviet citizen, their like daily caloric intake was actually higher and healthier than most Americans. And not only that, but it was distributed equally. Another good example,
but that doesn't mean that their government was good.
Oh, well,
again, that's the context. That doesn't mean that their government was a functioning democracy. It wasn't.
So I think an even more perfect example of this, the GDR, German Democratic Republic, the Berlin Wall, etc.
Right.
They did want that taken down. They wanted more robust relations and trade with the Western world.
Right.
They did eventually get it, but an interesting thing that they don't tell you about is they didn't fall in love with capitalism at first sight. As a matter of fact, one of the first things that happened after the wall essentially fell, there was a huge fight, huge swirling protests around the fact that they were going to privatize housing in that part of Berlin that had been used to like this public subsidized housing, and they actually were able to defend themselves against that particular against real estate capitalism. To this day, there's still robust and quality public housing that in the East Berlin. You got to take these narratives with a pinch of salt. Remember where you're hearing a lot of this stuff from, and also remember that people's affinity for particular governments or particular leaders doesn't necessarily mean they hated all the policies of that government, which in many cases are better than the United States.
No. I disagree with that, but I will co-sign on we can look at a situation and the entirety of the situation, and we can say, yes, this whole thing, the overall, this is bad. Overall, this is horrible. But we can look at some things. If we are not looking at, it's not looking at the bright side. It's not like I'm trying to throw, look at the brighter side of things. It's just we look at things with an objective lens. And now here's the reason why I'm bringing this up. The reason why I wanted to bring up this clip was because this conversation was brought up with a spokeswoman from the DNC going on Fox News to shame the person who's winning in the Democratic race. So that's shameful. What happened to unity? We don't even need to bring that up. But also, people on the View, which is the most talks about talk show, also was smearing Bernie because of this. But they forget, and this goes to my next point. When Bernie said President Obama literally was basically said the same thing that he said, Joe Biden said President Obama didn't, and he was they were trying to smear Bernie Sanders like he lied. So we found the audio and video of the clip that Bernie's talking about. Now remember what he said. He said, yes, I do not support brutal theocracies. I do not support dictatorships. That I reject all of that. But truth is truth. They did create a literacy program that helped out the poor and disenfranchised in the country. Listen to what President Obama said.
President Castro in Cuba. I said, look, you've made great progress in educating young people. Every child in Cuba gets a basic education. That's a huge improvement from where it was. Medical care. You know, the life expectancy of Cubans is equivalent to the United States, despite it being a very poor country, because they have access to health care. That's a huge achievement. They should be congratulated. But you drive around Havana and this economy is not working.
All right, you're going to pause in a few seconds.
It looks like it did in the 1950s.
Oh, okay, pause it. So
everybody who's been criticizing Bernie for what he said is basically, well, one, they're playing to the right of Obama, which is not a good look when you're trying to take on, we have a literal authoritarian as our current president. So
I want to say, I want to send that clip to The View, to Cuomo, to Fox News, to all the people who's been trying to throw shade at Bernie. Are you going to hold that same standard for our ex-president? Our ex-president did the same thing. Our ex-president lifted the embargo on Cuba.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
you really want to get regressive on some of the good foreign policy accomplishments of the last administration.
Right? No, you're right. You're to the right of what Obama did. That was good. There was an embargo on Cuba. The only people who had an embargo on Cuba was America and Israel, and that was it. The rest of the world was like, nah, Cuba's we cool. We are cool with Cuba. As a matter of fact, when the hurricane hit Katrina and hit Florida, didn't Cuba send us aid?
I believe they did.
Right.
And so did Venezuela sent us some oil. Private heating oil when Hurricane Harvey hit New York. I remember that pretty vividly too.
So this is the point that I'm trying to get at, folks. The world is this is the point that I'm trying to get at, folks. When you hear these smears, you have to remember to tell those people, keep that same energy, and make sure that that when you hear these smears, keep that same energy for people. For when they choose to forget that the people that they supported also did the same thing, are also doing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Where was that? That was with that, I don't know exactly. Do we want to keep digging into this? There's still a lot to kind of dive into with these past two debates and everything that's kind of been going on since then. Nevada was interesting. It was a blowout.
Yeah, we have. I mean, we have to talk about that, but we also got to talk about the debate. But I need to go get some water. So.
Oh, okay. Well,
we're gonna take a few minute break.
Let's take a quick little break. When we get back, we're gonna keep on keeping on this particular topic. Y'all are listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for political revolution. right, we are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo.
Let me pull up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pulling up the slate.
So there was a local story at Western I wanted to talk about later on in the program.
We can talk about that.
I think let's stick with the debate stuff since we're on that kind of track right now. So I'll give props to Bernard for speaking some truth up there on the stage. I think it was in the exchange when everybody was dogpiling on him about Cuba, and he mentioned another uncomfortable truth about how the United States government has overthrown a lot of democratically elected regimes across the world. Chile, Guatemala. He brought up the other examples. I know the attempted one in Venezuela, but that's something that you typically do not hear on a presidential debate stage.
And also him talking about the moderator asking him, "Hey, why are you being so mean to AIPAC?" And without actually saying AIPAC's name, and him being like, "I don't mess with authoritarian regimes. AIPAC supports an authoritarian regime." He was like, look, and also, this is me criticizing Bernie and Warren. I'm going to criticize them both, even though I love them both. We can move the embassy back to Tel Aviv. It's our embassy. We moved it. We can move it back. Mm-hmm. That's not a oh man, other people need to have no, it's ours. If we say move it back, we move it back.
Yeah, I was a little surprised about that, honestly, because I didn't hear the context in which it was uttered, but the whole point of moving it to Jerusalem was to be provocative and kind of spit in the eye of Palestinians. So how you have a nuanced discussion about not moving it back?
Bernie said it's something that he would consider, because that was the tail end of the question. Yeah. The initial question was, why are you being so mean to AIPAC without actually saying the word AIPAC? Mm-hmm. And AIPAC and would you move the thing to would you move it back to Tel Aviv? And he said, the answer to the second question, it would be something that we consider, but let me go into deeper detail why I don't support AIPAC. Mm-hmm. And he said, Benjamin Netanyahu is basically has an authoritarian regime where he's treating the Palestinians like second-class people. He was like, Israel has a right to exist. This is true. So does the Palestinians. They have a right to be treated like human beings. Mm-hmm. That was basically his answer. Right. Mm-hmm. That was, and you can't say that was he talked about them as in they were human beings. When you heard Mike Bloomberg's answer, he said the Palestinians need to be accommodated. They need to be accommodated. Not that they are equal human beings and equal citizens. They need to be accommodated. Like you're throwing them a bone. Like you're throwing them a bone, not realizing the power imbalance in that situation, mm-hmm. which leads me to the overwhelming thing that I thought about the debate. The debate was a hot mess. It was a hot mess and a half. Moderators were garbage. These were some of the worst moderators of the field. They let people talk over each other without giving context. There was a time when Tom Steyer said, "I'm the only person up here that supports reparations." Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders both raised their hand like, "Hold on now, we also want to talk about this too." Mm-hmm. And then moderators just went on and just went immediately to the next topic. Just letting people lie on stage without any pushback. Mayor Pete was just, every time Bernie was trying to say something, Mayor Pete was constantly trying to interrupt them, and they were not trying to tamp that down. So that was disgusting. What else was disgusting?
Well, we did talk about earlier how it seemed like a much more negative audience towards Bernie Sanders than usual.
Elizabeth Warren.
And there's a reason for that.
Yeah,
a very interesting reason for that.
So this is coming from Slate. For those that was wondering, like, when Bernie said, Mayor Bloomberg does have a lot of support. They're all billionaires. All his support's coming from billionaires, and the crowd booed him like he just stabbed a puppy. Like, seriously. Like, we've heard groans and we've heard boos. Like, when Bloomberg said at the last debate, the women who were upset with me is because I said an inappropriate joke, and the crowd groaned. Like, these people, like, literally was like they booed Bernie like he just like I said, like he just stabbed a puppy in front of everyone. Like, it was that kind of vitriol. Well, and also, so if you're like, okay, Bernie was talking trash about billionaires and people booed him. Okay, that's a little weird. But when Elizabeth Warren said the fact that Bloomberg told a pregnant woman to kill the baby, and she said that they booed her, I was like, okay, all right, something's really wrong here. And I wasn't the only person that thought this. So this is coming from Slate. This is coming from Ashley Finberg from Slate. A local Charleston news station reported earlier this month that the only guaranteed way to get a ticket was to purchase a sponsorship ranging from $1,750 to $3,200. The rest of the tickets though were first handed out to the organizers, then to the campaigns, may get some tickets to disperse among their supporters.
By the way, that's so just making sure that's not like the same scalpers that got all the Rage and My Chemical Romance tickets.
No. So after the controversy and after that, a spokeswoman from the DNC came out and said that some of the tickets were a majority of tickets were given to the campaigns, and that they weren't selling them in the same way. So they weren't selling them. So I'm gonna give you that context. But the reason why I'm giving you that context is the spokeswoman that came out and said that on behalf of the DNC went on Fox News to trash Bernie about the Castro comment. It was the same DNC woman.
Oh, man.
So, do I trust it? No. Do I believe that Mike Bloomberg bought a lot of fans in the audience? Yeah, because one of the things that he got praised for, hey, if she when going back and forth with Elizabeth Warren, and she got praised for, hey, if she was a teacher in New York, they wouldn't have treated her like that. The unions in New York wouldn't have treated her like that. He got wild applause. He's in South Carolina, folks. Mm-hmm. He's in South Carolina. I don't think that the people in South Carolina would have. I honestly think. First of all, no. It's not that I think. I know. Who do you know right now that can pay $1,750 to buy a ticket to go to a presidential debate? Who do you know right now that has that money just in their back pocket? Like, honestly,
I think some of the people I've talked to at like the city meetings I go to, but like that's it. Like, it's like, and they do not share my kind of politics. I'll just say that.
But again, like, what average American was gonna? Again, that like they did the same thing against, and this is the reason why I hate because they were trying to throw this comparison to Bernie, as Bernie's like Trump. They were trying to do the same thing, but when Trump was going against Jeb Bush, and they were booing Trump all the time during the 2016, and Trump said, "Yo, these are all the people that's booing is his donors." Mm-hmm. That's basically what same situation.
Yeah, man.
Basically, and it's sad. It's sad that I can't even do that.
Oh yeah, I think it bears repeating too that there are some parallels you could draw between the Republican primary in 2016 and the Democratic primary right now. Although I will say this much, and I mean, fingers crossed here, but they had like 4 years to prepare for this. It seems like they would have come up with a better strategy than just like, swamp him with moderates that can't get more than 20% of the vote in any state. But, oh man, but yeah,
the moderates, the people that was asking the questions, they were horrible. The candidates was obnoxious. Like Mayor Pete, like you could tell that Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar realized that they're not going to win. So their thing was let's throw as much shade at Bernie as humanly possible, and that's basically what they did. And at the same time, Warren threw some jabs at Bernie as well, but none of them really landed. It was a hot mess, and all it did in my opinion was keep things as they are. But if you keep things as they are, Bernie was only 3 to 5 points behind Biden in South Carolina, and that was the last polling before the Nevada bump, before he devastated in Nevada. So I don't know how South Carolina is going to play out on Saturday.
I think it'll be a lot closer than everyone originally expected.
Originally, Bernie was supposed to get blown out.
Yeah, I know Biden clinched a really important endorsement a couple of days ago. I don't know.
Jim Clyburn.
Yeah, that's right.
He got Clyburn.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it remains to be seen. It might be Biden's big win for the season.
Yeah.
And I mean that's not completely unexpected. I'd say anybody who's watching these primaries, keep your closest eye on the delegate math, because I mean, even as cynical as I am, I don't think they can stop him from getting a plurality of the delegates. Like he's the momentum is on his side.
Even Nate Silver had to admit that Bernie has that Bernie.
Yeah.
Nate Silver, who doesn't like Bernie, had to admit that Bernie looks like he might run away with Super Tuesday.
Yeah,
he might run away. He might run away with the thing.
I mean, for all of us in 2016 who are like really invested in all this, it's pretty amazing to go from like this scrappy underdog to like somebody who is quite likely going to run away with at least the most delegates, and barring some malarkey at the convention this summer, the nomination. But yeah, it's a malarkey.
Yeah, malarkey. Like who are you, Joe Biden?
I guess so. Yeah. I wanted to talk about a moment with a debate that enraged me probably more than any other, and he did immortalize this in a tweet that he took down later. But I'm going to play. This isn't the debate. You can't delete this. This was something he said live on air. But this is everybody's favorite milk a toast mayor, and he made a very interesting analogy between his campaign and that of Bernie Sanders. So I'm just going to play this real quick and then tell you how I feel about it.
Go ahead.
And I am not looking forward to a scenario where it comes down to Donald Trump with his nostalgia for the social order of the 1950s and Bernie Sanders with the nostalgia for the revolutionary politics of the 1960s.
By the way, anybody who cheered that, please go to a doctor. I think you've got a boot in your throat. No, good. Just no mercy. They don't.
Nah. We have to play. I'm gonna send you the timestamp, but
right.
Like, I want to play the worst joke.
Oh, I will, but I just want to talk about the layers of how gross this is. Pete Buttigieg would not be on that stage if it weren't for the revolutionary politics of the 1960s.
Like the ones that his father and his godfather, his uncle Dr. Cornel West was doing.
Or just even in the context of like Pete Buttigieg being a gay man, like people died, people fought in the streets for your rights and your viability to be up on that stage. Like, like, how dare you? Like, the Stonewall riots were in 1969. That led to, you wouldn't have Harvey Milk. You wouldn't have any number of LGBTQ politicians, including Pete Buttigieg himself, if it weren't for these struggles. To say that you want to run, a little bit more moderates or whatnot is your campaign, that's cool. You're wrong, but you can make that argument. But to poo-poo the legacy of the generations before you that gave you the rights that you currently have, it's gross. All right.
I got you. See, here's the thing, man. In my opinion, that is the literal definition of white privilege. When you look at Mayor Pete, and you look at what he said there. Think about what kind of gall and what kind of narcissism do you have to think about to put that in your frame of mind. And also at the same time, he went to Notre Dame and Ivy League schools, and when he saw that the janitors were protesting and he saw Dr. Cornel West protesting with them, he said that they were social justice warriors. He wasn't on the side of those who would be a part of the a part of that revolutionary movement that got us here. Martin Luther King, Pete Buttigieg, in multiple ways, is exactly what Martin Luther King talked about from his letter from a Birmingham jail. When Martin Luther King said, "I've come to the realization," and I'm paraphrasing. He said, "I come to the realization that it's not the state rep that's getting in our way. It's not the Klansman. It's not the police officer. It's the white moderate. It is the white moderate that's getting in our way. It is the one who says, I stand. It's the one that says, I stand for. I agree with your message, but I do not agree with your methods. I stand with you in solidarity, but I cannot be with you while you're during your fight." Pete Buttigieg is that white moderate. So timestamp's 19 right here. This one.
Oh, which clip am I playing here?
I think it's the last one I sent you. The last one I sent the group.
Oh, okay.
The
worst joke of all time. Okay.
Yeah. So you wanna pause it. So it's at 19. Yeah. Anyway, but no, Mayor Pete is the definition of white privilege. His father was a Marxist. Was a Marxist. He's known people like Dr. Cornel West his whole life. He called people who were fighting for change when he was in college social justice warriors. He literally told union workers who were striking, "When are you going back to work?" These are not jokes. These are not punchlines.
By the way, this is a big reason. I remember some article headlights like, "How come other millennials don't like Pete Buttigieg?" Like, this is why.
It's like Mayor Pete stands in the way of progress that millennials are fighting for. He would stand in the way of progress. Like he's for civility over conflict. He'd rather keep the status quo than to rock the boat on actually getting significant change. That's Mayor Pete.
I saw a really good analogy about Mayor Pete, and it's basically Mayor Pete is the kind of millennial that boomers wish millennials were, and Bernie Sanders is the kind of boomer that millennials wish boomers were. Although I think Bernie's actually older than that generation, but that's a general idea.
Basically, bruh, facts. Yeah. Okay, here's this thing. So this is when I knew that the crowd definitely was bought and paid for by people who had over $1,000K in their pocket that they can just spend on a presidential election. They just make it rain and be a sponsor. Because okay, this joke is awful. It is horrible. It's whack. It's garbage. And it's absolutely garbage, but Mike Bloomberg gives them utmost praise. This is how you know that audience was bought and paid for by people who might be thousandaires and millionaires.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's play it.
That I really am surprised that all of these, my fellow contestants up here, I guess would be the right word for it, given nobody pays attention to the clock. I'm surprised they show up, because I would have thought after I did such a good job in beating them last week that they'd be a little bit afraid to do that.
Pause it. Pause it.
That was a really just awkward joke.
Pause it.
It was like a space alien being trained how to tell a joke, a human joke.
Dog.
Oh, God.
You heard the audience go,
yeah.
and we're sitting here like, what did he just say? Like, I just want to, if we could, again, on my Facebook page, I'm a cuss, so I'm a play stink meter.
I have just told a self-deprecating joke. Everybody laugh.
Yeah, I told a funny.
Yeah.
I told funny. Dog. The thing that makes it so unaware, outside of him saying basically that I buy politicians on stage accidentally, him buying his way into the Democratic Party, for him to even think about saying a joke like that. Like, dog, we understand. You got jumped last time around because you bought your way on stage. So they treated you like the new kid at school.
Yeah.
So you got hazed. And
I will say, even as much as I disagree with, like, you know, an Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, or Joe Biden, they have legitimately been campaigning for months and months and months. So I would be frustrated too if, you know, some billionaire punk just decided in November, it's like, oh, you know what, I'm going to try to buy this election.
Oh yeah. Also, oh my God, I'm glad that we brought this up. We got to play the Jacob Johnson clip. The before we end the show, we have to play that clip. Because I wanted to talk about that, and how Chris Matthews had to apologize. Those things have to be talked about. But Bloomberg, he's Trump, but for people who want to say they're part of the resistance. That's what he is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's a shame. It is a crying shame that he is even on that stage.
It really is. It really just exposes the. When we talk about money and politics, it's like the culmination of that. I couldn't think of any. It's like it'll appear in an American textbook. I mean, if we actually have a future,
right.
You know, climate change and all that.
Right.
But it'll show up in an American textbook about just like how the apotheosis of corporate capture of our country, when we had a billionaire trying to vie for a spot to unhoist another billionaire from the White House, like
basically. Dog, that's it. Like the debates were god awful, but what they did was what the debate did, it froze the polls. That's what they did. They want to freeze the kicker. Like you see this in football all the time. You want to freeze the kicker so the kicker can miss the game-winning field goal, forgetting the fact that Bernie's already won the first 3 contests. He's leading in delegates. He's leading in the popular vote. If we are looking at the exit polling from Nevada, he leads with everyone who is under 65, and he's leading with everyone. And the only people that he does not get is people who are under 65 and people who do not like Medicare for all. That's it.
Yep.
That is a tiny. Let me also remind everybody that 75 to 88% of the Democratic Party, 75 to 88% of the Democratic Party supports Medicare for all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of older black folks that are in South Carolina. Biden still has a strong base. Biden might eke out a win. Biden might win by 3-4 points. He might. I'm actually going with the bet that Bernie's going to win South Carolina. I'm actually going with that bet. But I just want everybody to understand, Biden might eke out a victory, but there's no path after that.
Yeah, really. No.
California, Bernie's winning by double digits. Texas, Bernie's leading now. Bernie might mess around and actually win Massachusetts too, and that's also sad.
Oh man,
like he might win. He might win Massachusetts, and he might win Amy Klobuchar State. Yeah. Like, do you know how bad it is that in Super Tuesday you lose your own state? Like Mike Bloomberg's been running tons of ads and stuff, and I understand that, but it looks like Bernie's gonna sweep all those, man.
Yeah. So I want to. There's two stories I want to jump on and kind of get away from primary talk for just a minute. And I'll let you choose. Do we want to talk about this shenanigans here at Western Michigan University, or the call out the TYT stuff first? I don't know. There's a lot of juice to the Western story. Maybe we'll do that one.
I want to do what? The TYT story I think is shorter. So let's.
Okay.
So
one of our sources. So we source a lot from like TYT. Actually, I think we played a couple of their videos in this program. They're if you ever want a good like media guide, they're a source you can trust. And some of our common sources are TYT, Democracy Now. I also go to like the Gray Zone, Mint Press News, the Real News, sometimes the World Socialist website. However, TYT is kind of under some scrutiny, under some fire, because an ostensibly progressive news outfit is giving some. They are reluctant to let their staff unionize.
Here's the thing. I'm not gonna lie to you. Now I'm gonna be upfront and honest with y'all. Mm-hmm. I am biased. I am 100% biased because I'm gonna tell y'all that I'm biased. I don't think the story is true, because the person that wrote this story has smeared Cenk Uygur before.
Oh, that's true.
The people that wrote this story and Huffington Post have smeared TYT before, and they have. So I'm putting that context out there that what they're reporting may be true. I'm just also saying that these are also the same people who have smeared them before. So just give that some context.
I think with that in mind, I'm just gonna just drill down on the facts. They have some more descriptive stuff in here, but basically what happened was there's a Twitter handle claimed to represent TYT employees. That hasn't been debunked since this article dropped. Just important note. I had announced on social media platform their intention to form a union. In the staff meeting, the network's co-founder, Cenk Uygur, urged employees not to do so, arguing the union does not belong at a small independent outlet like TYT, according to two workers who were present. He said if there had been a union at the network, it would not have grown the way it has. Quote from one of the workers, we generally feel disappointed but unshaken, said one staffer who spoke on the condition of anonymity. We feel like it's the right thing to do because of what TYT values. Cenk Uygur went on to tell Huffington Post in an interview he's a strong supporter of unions, especially large corporations that aren't sharing profits with the workers. But he said he worries a unionized workforce could bring new legal and bureaucratic costs that TYT can't sustain. The network has a growing subscription base and has raised venture capital money, but faces many of the same headwinds as other online media dealing with the collapse of ad revenue. I don't know. I think there's
that's actually. Let's see.
I'm going to go from the critical side of it. I'm going to say this is something you should have foreseen, especially being a progressive news outfit. That's true. The first thing I think you should have done is, if you, with an organization like the Young Turks, if your workforce is trying to unionize and you're ostensibly... You run stories about unions and worker organizing as one of your main pieces of content. you should have been prepared for at least some time on how you're actually going to do this with the infrastructure that you currently have. I'm sorry, it doesn't. I don't cry me a river.
No.
But
I mean,
yeah.
I definitely agree with you on that. I agree with you on that point. But I mean, there is a difference between a company that has less than 100 people and a company like Walmart or Pfizer or Stryker or Amazon, unionizing. Like there is a difference, and also the cost of how to sustain said union and their business model is a definitely much more nuanced conversation than I thought about it. You know what I'm saying? Here's the thing. I do agree with you that if we're going to be a progressive outlet that also talks about unions, but it also goes into the fact that who's heading the union, who's gonna head it, who's gonna be and what are those values? Because as we saw in Nevada, the culinary union. The leaders of the culinary union was trying to do propaganda saying that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren wants to take away their health care because they want to provide Medicare for all. Mm-hmm. And the reason why they were doing that is because a dirty little secret that people don't want to talk about with unions give health care to the people who are in the unions. They provide that. So that's a part of their revenue stream. It's a part of in the way that they make money. Mm-hmm. So that's why the workers that were in the culinary union said, screw off, you don't know what you're talking about. Instead of y'all providing us health care, an employer providing us health care, we can have universal health care from the government so y'all can fight for us getting a better wage. That's true. It's a yes and. Yes, I agree that that TYT should have a union. Yes, I agree that a progressive outlet who are pro-unions and who are also criticize unions because they've criticized the police union as well. So someone who's supposed to be objective and with facts, that's a nuanced conversation. So it's a yes and. I agree that they should be unions. I also agree that you also got to look at how it can be sustained through their business model. Mm-hmm. So that it's a yes and. But you know what I'm saying? I have faith that they'll work it out.
Oh yeah.
But and at the same time, HuffPost, dog, the person that wrote that article, y'all smeared progressives before. I don't know how I feel about y'all.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's one of those. I
mean, there can be an agenda, but I do think at the heart of it, whoever's reporting on it, I do think, TYT did mishandle this at some point. And, hopefully, solve the problem, talk to the workers, find a path forward, and then this problem will solve itself. But, so let's move to, again, this is a super local topic. I did want to talk about it, though, because this has gone viral. This is, to some degree of embarrassment, to the administration at Western Michigan University. Actually, the article I pulled this up from, it's not MLive or the Herald, it's the Atlanta Black Star.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, like thousands of people have engaged with this absolute ridiculousness. So, here's the context. Here's what happened. So a choir here at Western Michigan University is embroiled in a bit of controversy after a black student complained about them, a group singing basically, spirituals, like black slave spirituals during a recital. A predominantly white choir. I think it was an only white choir.
African.
Yes.
African enslaved, like we're gonna say enslaved people. Let's give them some dignity. You know what I'm saying? These are enslaved Africans. And they were singing, and this white choir was singing basically Negro spirituals, and so let's here's the thing. Here's the thing.
And the show.
If they sang well, I would have gave them a pass. That's the problem. That's the problem. I'm like, because here's the thing. Because Am I upset that an all-white choir decided to sing a Negro spiritual?
The show was literally titled "Spirituals from Ship to Shore." It's like
that's okay. That right there. That's where what's the thing was like? At this moment, we knew.
Why can't we just have an all-white cast of The Wiz?
No.
Do that.
No. What is it?
I mean, this is worse. But I'm just saying.
No. It's at that moment they knew they messed up. And here's the thing: if the choir sung well, you know what I'm saying, then you know what? I wouldn't have gave them a hard pass, but if the choir turned it out, then I'll be like, I might have gave them a pass. Yeah. But at the same time, one, they didn't. Two, the name of it, that was wrong. Mm-hmm. Whoever titled that piece at Western, they deserve to get slapped. And three, y'all telling me during Black History Month at this school, not one person in this choir could have been like, yo, we need to get some black choir students.
Here's the thing.
We can't have how about we partner with the black choir students that are on campus.
There is a WMU. There is a gospel choir here on campus, predominantly black students. Not to mention all the ones out in the broader Kalamazoo community.
That's my point. Yeah. You could have been like, yo, we could do a mass choir. Let's do a mass choir so that we can show, not only show solidarity and show some respect and honor to these songs, but we can have people, we can show that we stand united and that we are paying respect to the black culture. Dog, they were wrong. They basically Taylor Swift. they did to the Negro spirituals what Taylor Swift did
to September.
That's basically. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. When Christina Aguilera did "It's a Man's World," right? You know what I'm saying? I was like, Christina can sing. She gets a pass from me. You know what I'm saying? If Adele wanted to sing "Kiss by a Rose," or if Adele wanted to sing, I don't know. She couldn't sing Luther, but let's say she wanted to sing like Aretha Franklin. She wanted to pay a tribute to Aretha Franklin, somebody. You know what? Adele can sing. I'll give Adele a pass. But when you Taylor Swift a Negro spiritual song, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to the original September from Earth, Wind and Fire, and then listen to Taylor Swift's cover. Yeah. Here's the thing, though. And this is the reason why it makes me laugh, because NDIRE, I'll give you another example. NDIRE did It's a Heart of Matter. The Heart of Matter was created by the Eagles, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. The band, the Eagles, the head singer said that NDIRE's cover was better than the original. You can do covers of other artists who are not the same race as you, and if you do them better, or you do them justice, then we ain't gonna have no problem.
Well, I think too, like a lot these songs are really grounded in their historical context, and I think it's important to note, like, and this is something the university was kind of propping up for a minute. So it was the guest artist who put this together, John Wesley Wright. He's from Salisbury University. And it was kind of his idea. He said, like, oh, these songs don't belong to any one race, and they belong to the broader culture now.
No.
And they tried to hide behind, it's like, well, it was a black artist who made this decision to do this. No.
That artist needs to get slapped in the face. No.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, I had some conversations with, like, a lot of, like, black activists here in town, and, like, that was the general consensus, like, no.
Dog. There is a gospel choir that is here on campus. You could have did a mass choir just like every other black church when Gospel Fest happens in Kalamazoo. You get a mass choir full of people of all different races, and then either Take Six or Sweet Honey in the Rock or whoever they haven't sing at Gospel Fest will come in and perform with the mass choir. That is mad diverse, of all ages, shapes, colors, creeds, and whatever. And they can do songs that are spiritual songs or Negro spirituals, and it would have been fine. You chose not to do so.
Yep, and I want to read this is directly from Shaylee Fott. Who
Can we play some of the? Can we play some of the audio?
In a second. But I want to just read what she said real quick. She said it was primarily white parents and students, and you're trying to get the audience to join in and sing, and it felt so wrong. I was heated just sitting there. It felt like it was all for entertainment, and this is not for entertainment. This is part of somebody's culture and history, and you have no idea what it means. She goes on to say, as a black woman, these spirituals are part of my history and my culture, and it signifies the struggle and hardships my ancestors went through. The way the program last night was portrayed is that it was all fun and games and is merely entertainment.
Absolutely. 100%.
I'll go on to say it's like something that doesn't get mentioned in this article is like once it went viral, instead of like immediately apologizing, the university kind of like at first they were like, well, they hid behind like, you know, the black artist who put this together. Then people were attacking this student. Some people were even like saying that she asking if she had mental health issues for like pointing out like some, this is like basic like appropriation 101.
Here's my thing. Again, it goes back. So if an all-black choir did a Celtic song, like if an all-black choir did a Romanian song,
good comparison might be like some Irish song about like British oppression or something like that. But
like if an all-black choir did "May the Road," "May the Road," "Rise of Dimitri," which is an Irish blessing song or whatever, and they chose to funkify it. You telling me that those same white people wouldn't be upset?
Honestly, I kind of want to hear that.
No, I mean, it would be dope. Yeah, but that's not the problem. The thing is that when you take away context, the context of where these songs were coming from, you take away the fact that of why these songs were being sung in the first place to guide the enslaved Africans to freedom, to get to give hope and dignity back to those that was literally having their humanity ripped away from them, and you basically decide to do this performance like it's a talent show, you don't give it the respect it deserves. This is the reason why you get the backlash that you deserve.
Yep.
It's not. This is not for play.
And it's
Our
also
culture,
just
black culture is not. It's amazing how, and I'm taking this from LL Cool J. The dominant culture in America loves our rhythm but doesn't want to listen to our blues.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And this is a pure example of that. You rock with the rhythm, but you're not. You don't want to listen to the blues. You're missing the context of why those songs were created in the first place.
Yeah, and I also want to say, like, you know, the administration here at school, it seemed like they were really hiding behind this visiting artist. And, I mean, that's a problem with a lot of white liberalism is, like, you know, they, or just even the kind of racial politics we have in this country is like, well, you know, because a black person came up with this, it must be fine, must be good. It's the same kind of thinking that, you know, gives like this kind of false validity to people like Candace Owens. You know, it's like no, like, you gotta do a little bit better than that. You gotta like do your own research about the history of race in this country. And when you see something like that coming up, just because this artist like says like this is my vision and it's okay and it'll work, you still have a response to be like, I don't know about that. I've had a lot of people I've been talked to that disagree with you very strongly.
Doc, that's like saying, Doc, we're gonna have a context of race and religion with Jesse Lee Peterson. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like just because, like, as a saying that I was told when I was younger, skin folk ain't always your kinfolk. Just because they look like you don't mean they for you. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that this artist does not have a good intention. I'm just saying that this execution and the way they went about it was bad. It was bad. The people who made the decision to make it like that had no foresight on what was to come. And that's their fault. Because they didn't have any foresight on what was to come, that was their fault.
All right, well, we are getting around 8 o'clock. I want to thank you for listening to the final episode of the Hoodrat Strategist Show. 'Cause I think that might be the first time we've directly critiqued the university.
Oh, man. If we get fired for this, then, you know what I'm saying? We're working on making a podcast, getting a live stream podcast stuff together anyway, so, I mean, we're going to work it out.
Yeah. No, we'll find another outlet. I'm going to take my show and go home.
I'm going to take my show. No. You Mike Bloomberg? I'm gonna just take my millions.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just take my ball. That's the thing.
We're gonna get jobs as Bloomberg consultants.
Dog. That was another story that I want to talk about. We didn't get a chance to. So apparently, just real quick hit. Apparently, there are multiple people who are working for the Bloomberg campaign, and apparently they are taking the money that they're getting from the Bloomberg campaign, they're donating it to Sanders.
Apparently, this is like a statistically significant phenomenon too. Because like I've also heard about them like the going on calls for Bloomberg. It's like, have you heard of Mail Bloomberg? It's like, well. I'm actually voting for Bernie. And he's like, oh yeah, me too, man. Yes.
Oh man, dog. Here's the thing. Hey, look. I'm not mad at you. I am mad at you. You're making your money, but you're making your money from a billionaire. But you're taking that money and you're giving it to someone who actually wants to fix this country. Yeah. I am not mad at you. That is wrong. It's immoral. But I'm not mad at you for doing it, dog. Yeah. Like, if you're going to work for Bloomberg, take his money and give it to Sanders, and yes.
Well, that's just some basic Robin Hood stuff.
Yes. Man. I'm all for it. Yeah. I'm for it. I don't support it, but I'm for it. Because, dog, that's crazy. That's crazy. But at the same time, I'm not going to mad. Yeah. I might mess around and do it, but I'm not gonna do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right. Well, I think with that, let's go ahead and close the show out. I want to thank y'all for listening. Again, you can find our episodes on YouTube, and we post them up on our Facebook page after the fact. Probably be up sometime tomorrow morning or afternoon. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.